Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We are going to get started in about 3 or 4 minutes. So if you just want to get cozy, get a glass of water, whatever you need, and then we will get started. Awesome. I see more people are hopping on. We'll get started at about 4 past the hour. So we're just going to wait for some more folks to jump on and then we'll get going. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We'll get started in about 2 minutes. Thanks, everyone, for joining us tonight. We'll get started in about 1 minute. Cool. It's about 4 past the hour, and we've got a lot of folks on, so I think we're going to get started. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our training on power researching elected officials. If that's where you want to be, you're in the right place. My name is Molly Gott, and I'm a senior research analyst at twittlesis, and I direct our training program. And I'm joined tonight by Jin, our co-executive director, and Allie, one of our senior researchers, who are going to guide us through a lot of tonight's training, as well as some special guests, Cheryl and Felice from the awesome tool Your Rep Record, which we're going to show folks tonight. And I'll share a little bit more about them in a bit. But I think we're going to get started. We'll be on for about an hour and a half tonight. And I'm going to start by just explaining a little bit about who we are. A couple of housekeeping things to start. We have a lot of people on tonight, so we don't have the chat up and running, but we do have the Q&A available. So if, as we're going through anything tonight, you have questions about any of the tools or content that we are covering, feel free to put your question in the Q&A, and I, along with our other presenters, will do everything we can to answer them. I think that we're going to be pretty low tech tonight, so that's kind of the main thing. We will share these slides and all of the tools that we are showing afterwards, as long as you were signed up and registered for the webinar. So don't worry too much about kind of taking notes or anything like that. You'll get all these slides as well as a recording. So make sure you're signed up for the registration through Zoom. As long as you are, you'll get everything we share tonight. So a couple of things just to start. About who we are. I think some of you probably have been on our trainings before. Some of you might be new, but we are an organization called Little Sis. We are called Little Sis because we are the opposite of Big Brother. So instead of Big Brother looking down on you, we are activists, organizers, journalists looking up at powerful people, corporations, and politicians. And we do several things. We do research, watchdog research, specializing in mapping powerful people and organizations. We do trainings like the one tonight, where we focus on training organizations, activists, journalists, the general public on the ins and outs of power research in an effort to partner with social movement groups and build up this kind of power research capacity in our movements. And the third thing we do is run some tech tools. So we have a database that is called twittlesis.org. It's a free open source research platform that lets you track relationships between powerful people and organizations. Really useful for doing the kind of power research that we do here at Little Sis. And we also have a mapping tool called Allographer that lets you make really nice data visualizations of networks between powerful people, corporations, and organizations. So that's a little bit about us and what we do. Um, this year, we're running a public training series that tonight's training is a part of. It's completely free and it's designed to really help organizers and activists develop power research skills. They're all recorded. They're mostly on Thursdays. On here, the screen, you can see some of the ones that have happened already. So if you're interested in them, you can go to our YouTube page and see previous recordings. On this next slide, you'll see our kind of flagship training program, Research Tools for Organizers, is starting next month on September 17th. It's a four-part series where we focus on kind of four different topics. Intro to power research, the corporation, nonprofits, and billionaires. And it's really meant to be a series that will give you kind of a foundational experience with this kind of research. So if you're on tonight and you find this training useful and you want to know more, that's a really great place to start. On September 17th, we'll be starting with some kind of conceptual framework around what power research is, why we do it, and some history of the role of power research in our movements, as well as being joined by some folks that are doing really exciting strategic research in organizing context today. So lots of stuff to learn there, and we'd be very excited for you all to join us. Before we jump into a little bit more about tonight, we wanted to do a quick poll to get a sense of who's with us this evening. So Allie, I think, is going to launch our poll. Um, and we just have a few questions. We'll give people a couple minutes to answer. If you could answer, it really helps us get a sense of who's on tonight, as well as how to kind of focus and continue to hone these trainings moving forward. So we'll give people like 2 minutes to do that. We give you like 30 more seconds. So if you're answering, finish up now. Cool. Allie, if you want to end the poll, and can you tell us a little bit about kind of who's on tonight?
Yeah, about 75% of folks are new to twittlesis training, so welcome everyone. From a pretty wide variety of organizing issues in the movement, a lot of housing justice, economic justice, some like worker organizing, and a lot of folks don't have a ton of experience or not as familiar with power researching elected officials. So great, glad you're all here.
Thank you, Allie. A little bit about how we are going to spend our time this evening, and then I'm going to throw it over to Jin. So, Jin is going to walk us through a little bit of just like table setting of why we think it's important to power research politicians, what this kind of research can be used for in an organizing context. And then we're really going to spend the majority of tonight walking through some demonstrations of key tools that are kind of like foundational to power researching politicians that we use often at Little Sis. So we're going to look a little bit at campaign contributions at the federal and local level, as well as the state level. And then we're going to have folks from Your Rep Record walk us through their awesome tool, which can do a whole variety of kinds of research on elected officials. And then we'll just share some other resources that we probably won't get time tonight to really demo and walk through, but that might be of use to people. And then we'll wrap up. So that's what the plan is. And I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jin, who's going to walk us through some of that why do this.
Great. Thanks, Molly. And thanks everyone for being here. Like Molly said, the first sort of large chunk of this training is going to be really focused on campaign finance research in particular before we hand it over to our friends at Your Rep Record to show off their tool. So I want to talk just very quickly about what we can sort of expect to find in this type of research, specifically in campaign finance research. Really, when we're doing this research, it can feel very basic. We're looking at money flows. So we're looking at how much has a candidate raised and spent, what are they spending their money on, who is donating to them, who is donating to the different PACs and other committees that are supporting them. And even in some cases, and we'll be looking at this too, who is actually working on that candidates committee. So who's sort of in their orbit. And that sounds pretty basic. But when you start to think about all the different ways that you can actually use that information, I think that campaign finance research is one of the best, most useful research tools that you will have in your toolbox. And that's because it will help you do things like understand who your representative is actually listening to. Oftentimes we feel like it's not us, so you get a sense of who they're listening to. You can expose political influence efforts. You can say you have someone who wants to build a data center in your community, and you find out, you go on and you find out who's behind the data center, and you find out they've been donating to all of your local politicians, your state reps, your senators. That is a great thing to expose. That's some powerful information that you can release to the public. That's a way to connect with other organizers. That helps you know who might be great subject for direct action or a sit-in of some sort. There's just all types of different ways that you can sort of leverage this, what we would think of as pretty basic information. It's the money that's going to our elected representatives, but can be used in a wide variety of campaign contexts. And so whatever brought you here tonight, whatever you're thinking you might do with this information, I'm really glad that you decided to join this training, because I do think it's a really essential one for aspiring researchers. So my part of this training is going to be focused on federal elections. And I'm saying that because Allie is going to be focusing on state and local elections. And there are very different databases and types of information that can be found between the two of them. So for this next probably 25 minutes, we're going to be looking at federal level campaign finance information. And I want to reiterate what Molly said earlier, that this training is being recorded. These slides will be available. I have a very limited amount of time, and I'm going to try to get through a lot. So I will be talking pretty quickly. Don't worry, don't freak out. You'll have this for reference later. So I'm going to sort of move through this stuff quickly If I lose you, I'm sorry, but this will be here to come back. But to get started, we're going to go through just a few key terms, make sure we're all on the same page. This is sort of a 101. First of all, we need to know who are the types of people, who are the types of contributors who are actually giving money. When we're looking at our campaign finance data, what are we seeing? We're seeing contributors like individuals, like you and me. We're seeing political action committees, so political groups that are raising money for either to support a candidate or oppose a candidate, but are not necessarily aligned with the or not necessarily a candidates committee. In some contexts, but not in the federal context, you'll see corporations and LLCs. Corporations and LLCs cannot donate directly to candidates at the federal level, but in some state contexts, they can. But often a corporation will have a PAC, and that's the vehicle that they use to donate. So then what are the entities that are receiving the money? We often think it's just the candidate, but there's a lot of different vehicles that they use to bring in funds. So the campaign committee, that's sort of who we would traditionally think of as the candidate. That's their primary committee. Sometimes they like to fundraise together and buddy up. So that's the joint fundraising committee. Sometimes there will be a leadership pack. So that'll be if there's a great fundraiser in their midst, that person might do a bunch of fundraising and then distribute those funds to folks that they're aligned with. And then there's the big party committees. So there's like the Democratic National Committee, the Republican National Committee, and they have those at the state level as well. And so in each of these contexts, all the different types of donors have limitations at the federal level that of the amount of money that they can actually donate to a particular recipient. And this little grid here is the most simplified version that you could find of things like this. So this is the 2026 limits for campaign finance at the federal level. You'll see the individuals can only give up to $3,500 to a candidate committee. But you'll see here just different configurations of transfers and things like that. And this is important to keep in mind as we're looking at the campaign finance database, that when people will often talk about individuals pouring millions and millions of dollars into races, they're often not talking about them pouring money into these types of vehicles, although they will donate through these different fundraising vehicles. They're often talking about people giving to super PACs. And this is a relatively new type of political action committee that can raise basically unlimited sums of money. And they're not supposed to give it to candidates. They're not supposed to coordinate with candidates or their campaigns, but regulations around that, it's pretty weakly enforced. And so we'll see some of that as we're going through the demo here today. So it's good to keep in mind when we're talking about the types and sums of money that we might be able to find. Again, this is the federal level. It's different state to state as well. So it's really important to sort of do your research and look up and see what the rules are where you live. And so with that, I'm actually going to get out of our slides here and move over to the FEC database. So the FEC database, that's the Federal Election Commission database. I'm going to do basically a live demo, just walking through, I think, some of the basic sort of 101 functions. This might surprise a lot of people. This database is great. For a government database, this is actually very useful. It's very functional. It's very intuitive. So definitely get in there and try things out. So to get started, so this is basically where all disclosures for campaign finance spending and expenditures related to campaigns, this is where it's all going to be made publicly available first. So organizations like Open Secrets, they're actually pulling their data from the FEC database. This is sort of your primary source for federal election spending. And so there's a few ways to get started here. This is the landing page. If you want to go do some searches, you can either go up here to this campaign finance data dropdown. I like to just start and hit this big button right here, search all campaign finance data. And I like to do that because it takes me to this cool page that I think is interesting that has right at the top here, there's a couple of different buttons where the FEC has actually aggregated all of the data in the system. And so if you click raising here, so say let's say you're not looking for something in particular, you just want to get a sense of how much money is going into a particular election, who's raising the most. This is where the FEC has aggregated all of the data within the database and determined which candidates are raising the most. And they've ordered them. And you can play around with this. You can actually switch between Senate candidates, House candidates, presidential candidates. You can toggle the year. I think it goes all the way down to, yeah, it goes all the way down to 78. It's a really interesting tool just to get a snapshot, I think, of how much money is being raised generally and in specific races. You can toggle through everyone who is raising money is represented. There's 664 entries here. But I think this is just a really interesting tool. You see John Ossoff here is at the very, very top. And so they're showing some of his data. If you scroll down a bit, you can see they have this really cool map showing where all those donations are coming from. And again, this is all data that is available in the FEC database, and we'll show how to get to it. But here it's been aggregated and put into this cool visualization. So definitely use it. Look up your rep if you want to see kind of, I think it's interesting to see how much out of state donating is happening for different candidates. Obviously, John Ossoff is based in not Florida, Georgia, but you can see he's pulling in donations from all around the country. And similar, they also have that for spending. And so that usually goes pretty hand in hand for who is spending the most in the election. So definitely just a cool tool to play around with. But if we have someone interested in someone specific in mind that we're interested in researching, let's say a particular donor, that's when we can go to this find contributions from specific individuals tool here, long name. So what we want to do is just right here in this box, I'm going to just select for no reason in particular, Elon Musk here, and search his name. And so what I've done is I'm looking for Elon Musk, the donor, the contributor, and all of the donations that the FEC, all the records that it has of his donations over the years. And so what you can see here is I haven't assigned a particular timestamp or anything, just his name. And I did this because it's a pretty he has a pretty unique name, and so I'm pretty sure that these records are going to be his, although you should always double check. But here, it's showing that it's pulling up 381 records for me. Now, these are records from when he very first began donating in elections. And so if that's what you're looking for, if you're just looking for a large data dump from a specific person or a specific or like a candidate's donor role, you can actually export this and it might be a little bit easier for you if you took our Excel for Organizers course. And if you haven't, you can find it on our past trainings. But sometimes it's easier to actually look through large data sets in Excel. So you can actually go up here to the right and hit that export button. I did already export this data set. It's telling on me. So you can see that it's giving me a little drop down that says I can download it. And then when I download it, it goes to my downloads and I could open that as a CSV file, save it as an Excel file. And that would give me some options to just view the data differently, maybe create a pivot table or something like that. But let's say I just want to play around with the FEC database. So I've got 381 records here, but over here on the left, you'll see I have this great sort of filter tool. And this helps me get a little more granular with what I'm looking at here. So you can see that I've put in Elon Musk's name, so it's definitely giving me that. If I had someone whose name was something like John Smith, right? And there might be, 1,000 of them in the FEC database, but I know that the person that I'm looking for, the John Smith I'm looking for, lives in a particular zip code. I might put this zip code in there in order to be able to filter those results. And it would only show me the John Smiths that reported being from a particular zip code. Similarly, I can do that with the city. I can do that with occupation, although I don't usually use that because people will describe their occupations in all sorts of ways. So it's hard to get a standardized version for that. I could do employer. So if I wanted to, for instance, look at SpaceX, let's see, SpaceX employees generally, I could unclick Elon Musk and it would pull up all the different employees who have donated that listed as being an employee of SpaceX. I could go down and change the state if I want to, again, if I'm working with a large data set that has a bunch of different records and a bunch of folks from different states, I can isolate it by state. So there's a lot of ways to get really targeted. And another way is to use a time period. So the FEC database separates its time periods by election cycles, which is very handy. And so you can select the different election cycles that you might want to look at just through this drop down. I'm going to use 23 to 24. That was a pretty big one. I'm also going to do 25 to 26. Why not? Let's throw that in there too. And so if I scroll back up here to the top, you'll see that I have filtered out from 380 to 186 results here. And if I want to change this up, say actually I only want to look at the last election cycle, I can just exit out right here and change it. Now I'm down to 90. And so that's just how to sort of play with the filter here to sort of get the view that you want. You'll notice I also chose Elon not just for his name, but also because he does a lot of donating to a lot of different types of recipients. And you can very quickly see here what I was talking about with the difference between the limited spending for certain types of committees. So we have these party committees here, the Mississippi Republican Party, the South Dakota Republican Party, each receiving $10,000. That's the max level that they could receive. But then you look just up and you see $40 million going to this PAC, America PAC. And that just sort of, to me, that really shows the wide discrepancy between some types of recipient vehicles and super PACs. It's just a completely different type of animal. So let's say I want to look a little bit more closely at this record. I can do that a few different ways. I can hit the plus sign here, which will take me to the source information, which is really helpful. I get information about who the donor is, who the recipient is. It says it's a super PAC. And sometimes, but not always, so don't rely on this, there will be a memo line that says sort of if the donation was intended for a specific purpose. In this case, it lists in-kind petition incentives attribution. So this was basically Elon Musk funding the super PAC that was used to incentivize folks who are filling out petitions in swing states. Folks might be familiar with that effort in the last election. Another thing I can look at here is if I want to know more about this America PAC, say this is sort of a new super PAC to me. These are all hyperlinks, so you can actually jump directly to the profile page for the specific entity. So I'm going to take another look here. I'm going to toggle over to the America PAC. Trying to keep my time here. And it takes me to this nice sort of financial summary. And this is actually what, if you look at sort of like a candidates page, you might see something like this too, where you'll see all the different contributions to the PAC. And I can look at, if I hit browse receipts, that'll show me every donor who is given to this particular PAC at that time. I'm willing to bet it's mostly Elon Musk, given the fact that they have about 50 million listed receipts. I can also go down to how it's spent. And so this is actually a really interesting part of this research is being able to go in and look at uh, these different committees, these different fundraising vehicles, and actually see how they're spending the money. So it's not, they have to report where the money is going, basically. So I'm going to hit browse disbursements here because I just want to look it over generally. And this is showing me, again, this very similar to the field that we were just looking at. I have my filters on the left side here, so I can change the time period if I want. This is looking at 25, 26. I'm just going to leave that for now. And here you can see all kinds of different types of disbursements. This is going to their in-kind contributions to United States of America, Inc. That is actually an entity that Elon Musk created to help distribute those checks to folks who signed up, did the petition sign up thing. You can also see here that things as innocuous as bank fees and their Intuit subscription, but you can also see who their like social media consultants are. You can see all kinds of different consultants, subscriptions, things that they might be spending money on. Let me actually just add in here. We'll do 23, 24, because in that one, you actually see, because that was during the presidential election, you're seeing a lot more spending on political strategy consulting. So you see there's just quite a few different lines here for that. So that's a great way just to sort of, again, get a sense of sort of like the network that's around these super PACs. I mean, they're taking in tens of millions of dollars and spending it on political consultants and all types of just like dubious types of spending that is supposedly not supposed to be connected to any particular candidate. So I'm going to leave this field now. I'm going to go back to my main page because we want to show from the candidate side also. So we're back here at this main screen where you can see on the right, we can look up individuals. Here on the left, we can look up candidates. I'm actually going to go ahead and click Jon Ossoff because we were just looking at him earlier. He's right here at the top. And what you can see here, this looks very similar to the Super PAC financial summary that we were just looking at. We can look at the receipts, so we can look at his donors. We can also look at his disbursements, how he's spending his money. You get the totals here. That's always very handy. So what I'd like to do is, let's say I want to look at who the donors are here. I'm going to hit Browse Receipts. And this is giving me a lot. So this is, we thought, 380 records, that was a lot. This is 582,000 records just from the 2025 to 2026 cycle. And so here we see records from all over the place. We do have Georgia, we have Virginia, Colorado, DC, New York. One thing that I like to do, I am very interested in donations from out of state to particular candidates. So let's say we want to see, okay, we see that Jon Ossoff gets a lot of donations from out of state. Who in state is donating to him? So here I can use, just like with the individual donor lookup, I can use this filter here to limit what I'm actually seeing. So let's say I want to see who is giving actually from Georgia. So I'm going to go down to more source details here. I'm not really sure why this one's hidden down here while the others are up top, but just so you know, it's down here. State or territory, I'm going to click it, and I'm just going to go down to Georgia. And that right there has pulled me back to 69,000 entries. And so this is showing me all of these donations from individuals to Jon Ossoff for Senate, which is his campaign committee. And again, just like with the other one, so this person has given almost the max. Didn't quite want to give them the max here, but you can take a look. Says what their occupation is, they're self-employed. Just gives a little more information about this. But again, very intuitive system to be working with. And I would say the best way to learn the database is just to go in and start looking up your representatives, go in and start looking up interesting donors. It can be just really illuminating to see all the data mixed together like that. And if you do get a really robust data set, being sure to hit that export button so that you can take the data set over to Excel. Sometimes it's just easier to see in that space. Okay, I think I covered everything. I was trying to be as efficient as possible. If I missed something, the Q&A is there, so please put questions in there. And once I'm off this section, I'll be happy to answer. But we're going to finish up just talking about a few challenges and tips that you may have noticed as we were going through the demo that might come up. So one thing that I was mentioning, that the reason I chose Elon Musk as an example is because his name is pretty unique. I wasn't going to get a lot of mismatches, but that's going to happen. You're going to find folks who their name is misspelled, they use the nickname, they might use a different address, they may have listed a different employer. It's really, really important to make sure when you're doing this research, and especially if you're doing large downloads of this research, to check all of those different things. Keep lists of different names for the person that you might be looking for. If you have found that their name has been misspelled in the past, maybe make a note of that. So definitely just check everything twice and make sure that you do have the right person. Same that there are a lot of people that have the same name. So similarly, just making sure that all those records match up. And then finally, this one kind of goes more towards Allie's section here, but donation rules do vary. Like I was saying, corporations and LLCs cannot donate directly. They have to have a PAC to donate in federal elections, but it's different state to state. So making sure that you understand your state's rules, very important. And then you may have caught this a bit when we sort of glanced at the SpaceX employees rundown, but there are these conduits, the most popular of which being Act Blue and Win Red, that make it very, very easy for individuals to make donations and make it very, very hard on researchers to understand those donations. And so, unfortunately, what happens when you see a donation and it says from a person and it says the recipient is Act Blue or Win Red, that means that they have used that system to make a donation to another candidate or to a PAC. And what that does it actually creates duplicate records in the FEC database, one from that person to the platform and another from the platform to the committee. Now, when you see that, it doesn't mean necessarily that you have to just ignore that, but it does mean that, if you remember back to when I clicked on that little plus, and I wish I would have shown this, but if you clicked on that little plus, whenever you see this and you scroll down, there will typically be a line that says that the money for that is earmarked for a particular candidate, committee, recipient. And that's a good way to see who it is supposed to go to. Now, this does get reconciled in the FEC database, but again, if you're working quick, it's just important to make sure you make that extra step to check that record and make sure you understand where the donation was actually headed after going through the conduit. And then my last little bit here is just about dark money. We were talking about super PACs. They're just a real bear. It's really hard to track dark money. In our case, we were able to see who was giving to the super PAC, but if someone wants to obscure who they are, they can be by an LLC or through a 501c3 group. Through either of those conduits and then giving to super PACs, it becomes nearly impossible to trace them. So it's just something to keep in mind that dark money is still an issue, but there's also a lot of folks giving a lot of money in broad daylight. So plenty to find elsewhere. And with that, on that high, happy note, Allie, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jen. And I go ahead and share my screen. So Jen kind of went over how to research federal level politicians using this federal government tool, the FEC database. One thing that we always get asked in these trainings is, a lot of you are working on state and local campaigns and state and local issues, and you're going to have to research state and local politicians. So we have a list of some resources that you can use. I'll demo one called Transparency USA. Um, so Transparency USA is probably the most useful tool when it comes to researching state and local politicians. Unfortunately, the downside to that is that they only cover the states that are on the right there in dark blue. I'll do a quick demo of how to use that tool. I'll also show how Open Secrets has started to incorporate state and local issues and elected officials into their platform. Open Secrets is a really great tool for federal level research. We've showed them in past trainings. They merged with a group called Follow the Money, which people might have heard of or used in the past, which did have a database for state level politicians and campaign finance information. Unfortunately, Follow the Money does still exist, but their data only goes up to 2024. They're still in the process of merging with Open Secrets, so I'll show what they have on their site now that can be maybe useful to you. And then if your state doesn't fall into those categories or those tools, um, each state has their own version of the FEC database that Jen just showed, which you can find by just searching the name of your state and campaign finance database or campaign finance search. Um, the quality of those tools really varies by state. Some of them are pretty finicky and hard to figure out. We'll talk about some like tips on how you can try to work with them and get the most out of them later, but each state at least will have them. It just varies, whether you get them in an orderly fashion with something you can download or just a bunch of PDFs, sometimes like handwritten PDFs. But I'll start with Open Secrets. I'm not going to do a demo, but I'll show some screenshots of what they have on their site that they're really starting to build out a lot more now. So I keep going back and checking, and every month or so it's updated. If you go to Open Secrets, their website, opensecrets.org, the top has these sections called politicians, elections, lobbying. If you go to the politicians section and they have this whole new state section, the most helpful part of this is their information on state legislatures. This is all information that was brought over from Follow the Money. So it'll look something like this on the top left. They have a click-through link to almost every single state legislator in the country. And it's a long list. It's every state and every district, senate or house. This is all brought over from Follow the Money. So anyone that doesn't have a click-through is probably a newer politician that wasn't brought over. But you can click through. I just searched the name of my state, Pennsylvania, where I live, and clicked through to Ryan Bizzaro, who is a state rep up in Erie, Pennsylvania. And you can click the different election cycles, and it'll show you the top donors or top contributors in that election cycle to that state rep. So that's a really, simple way to present that data. Can show you like the total number amount of, or the total amount of money they've raised and their top contributors. Can be really useful if you're just looking for something really quick to show you who an elected official has taken money from. Another tool that they offer, if you go to the elections tab on Open Secrets, you can see that under campaigns, they have something called ballot measures. Um, they have been able to track donors to specific ballot measures in states across the country. So in states, particularly states where it's easy to put a ballot measure on or to put an issue on the ballot, like the ones in purple there, you can click through the state and see ballot measures in recent years that um, range from, abortion rights to property taxes, marijuana legalization, a lot of things that we have seen over the past few years. You can click through and see who the biggest PACs were that were spending either for or against that ballot measure. Um, you can see the Ohio one there, for example. You could click through and see, okay, who was donating to PACs that were trying to, strip women of abortion rights in Ohio. So that could be really useful if maybe your state is going to fight one of these battles in the future. You want to see what donors you want to look out for, things like that. So now I'm gonna take a look at this tool, transparencyusa.org. I think this, for the lucky states that are included in Transparency USA, this is gonna be the easiest tool to use probably. So this is just the landing page, and if you scroll down, this is going to be that map I showed you earlier of all the states that have data in Transparency USA. And what it does is it scrapes data from the state campaign finance tool, usually found at the Secretary of State or Department of State website. And there is a slight delay. The data uploaded to Transparency USA is usually delayed by a couple weeks or a couple months. The other downside to it is that you can't bulk download on the website. They do allow you to reach out to them if you want to bulk download something or a data set. But aside from that, it's really an amazing tool. And I'm going to start by using Florida as an example here. So if I go click on Florida, you can also navigate to different states using this filter tool. And you could also navigate to different election cycles. Just to get a broad overview, I'm going to switch to this 2017 to now. And the landing page for each state is just going to kind of give you a broad sense of campaign finance in that state. It gives you the top elected officials there on the left, total contributions in the state. If you're looking at a specific election cycle, that can be useful to say, like, this election cycle, billionaires and corporations and donors spent, $45 million total expenditures there. And then another really useful thing is they aggregate who are the top fundraising candidates. So, like the top candidates who receive contributions in all of Florida since 2017. Who are the top PACs or top committees that spend the most money in Florida in the past few years. And then if you scroll down, you can see the top contributors. That include individuals, corporations, PACs. I'm going to come back to that, and I'm going to start by just showing a couple examples of profiles of elected officials in Florida. So if you go to Ron DeSantis's page, one of the reasons I like Transparency USA is because here under candidate committees, it shows you every PAC that is helping Ron DeSantis get elected or reelected. So you don't have to go through each of these PACs and add them up. It's combining all of that for you, giving you a nice graph there of his fundraising. And if you scroll down, you can see top contributors, but I'm actually going to go up to this contributions tab. And this is going to give you, since I'm still on 2017 to now, all of Ron DeSantis's top contributors since 2017. So you can kind of see the Republican Governors Association, the Republican Party of Florida. I see a couple billionaires here, Ken Griffin, Jeffrey Yass, a couple of PACs. I'm sure you'll find some, there's a capital in here, some corporations. If you scroll back up, you can also look at his campaign expenditures. So you can see he gave a lot of money back to the Republican Party. And then in a lot of these profiles, you'll see something that looks like an LLC or an Inc., like FlexPoint Media, Ventura Media Partners. These are all political consultants or consultants making ads for Ron DeSantis. So you can usually see that in their expenditures. I am going to go back to the Florida landing page so we can show you another profile, this time of a donor. I'm going to go back to the top contributors here. And instead of all, I'm just going to go to individuals because I want to look at, all right, who are the top individuals, usually billionaires, that are spending the most money in Florida elections? And I'm going to show Ken Griffin, who is a billionaire, moved to Florida a couple of years ago from Chicago. He's the founder and CEO of Citadel, a trading and investment company. He's a major right-wing donor. And as you can see here, he's given a little bit over $47 million since moving to Florida. A lot of that has gone to Ron DeSantis here. And you can see when you go to contributions, all of his donations that he's made to PACs or candidates in Florida. And just to show one more example, if I wanted to look for a corporation, I'll go back to this top contributors and let's look at US Sugar, another company based in Florida. So if you go to their profile, again, you can see the total contributions. I want to look at each of their individual contributions. And you can see they act a lot like a corporation. They are giving to something called the Florida Jobs Pact, giving to the Chamber of Commerce, another industry group. You can probably find a political candidate in there somewhere, but you can kind of see how they're acting. And we're just going to look at this Florida Jobs Pact. This is a corporate PAC that you can also look at their contributions here and see that US Sugar is one of their top contributors, along with Next Era, Utility Corporation, Florida Power and Light, Disney. So this is a corporate PAC that if we flip to expenditures, you can see is giving to like the Florida Senate Campaign Committee, and some individuals down here that are probably legislators, Ron DeSantis, um, a leader in the Florida State House, things like that. So there's a lot you can do with this tool. I'm going to show one more example because, as Jin was saying, we always hear about dark money and ways that corporations and PACs are giving money to candidates outside of just giving to their campaign. And one way that they do that on a state level is through independent expenditures. That can be a little bit tough to research, both on this site and through the state campaign finance database. So I'm going to show one example of how I've done that kind of research in the past because a lot of times these kind of outside influences, these PACs and independent expenditures are going to be how these billionaires and corporations are spending and influencing these races the most outside of just donating to their campaign. So I'm going to use Virginia as an example and search actually Betsy DeVos's organization, Federation for Children. This group has affiliates all over the country at different at state levels in different states. And I was actually researching this group because I wanted to see um, where this money that comes here, you can see Betsy DeVos. This is another billionaire, Thomas Petterfy. I wanted to see where this money was going. I knew they were spending it in Virginia, but when you go to expenditures, it looks like this. You see a lot of LLCs and these kind of consultants that you don't actually know where the money is going. So if I want to look at what races this money is actually being spent on, I can most of the time go to payments and I go look at the specific payment expenditure details page. And I can scroll down and see this was, in fact, an independent expenditure, and it was spent on direct mail to oppose Danica Roem, who is a senator, a state senator in Virginia. So it can be a little bit tedious, but at least now this is not dark money anymore. I know it was spent to oppose a certain candidate. So that's most of what I had to show on Transparency USA. I encourage you all to play around with it if your state is included. If your state's not on Transparency USA, try to play around with your state database, or even if it is. Like I said, the results can really vary depending on how many resources your state puts into those tools. Just some tips. You want to cast, if you're looking for a specific donor, specific individual, I try to cast a wide net at first and just search them by their last name because sometimes they have different spellings. Sometimes it'll come up that their spouse or child also gives to candidates. So I try to search by their last name just to see who is listed as a donor in that state and then figure out how they spell their name or what name they're using. If you're looking up a specific pack or a leadership pack, you can also just Google in quotes the name of that pack and see if you can find more information, like an address or person, phone number registered with that pack, if they have a website sometimes, so you can see who's behind it. And a lot of state tools will let you bulk download that data. So go to our Excel for Organizers training recording and learn some more tips for how to be able to analyze that data yourself. And lastly, be persistent. It is kind of frustrating when, the state or county or city tool is giving you a bunch of PDFs. Um, it can get tedious, but organize a research party, get your friends together and split it up so you're not doing all this data entry yourself. And it can be, a fun experience. And with that, I am actually going to turn it over to our friends from Your Rep Record. Um, I will introduce Felice and Cheryl. So Felice is a longtime Palestine solidarity activist. She lives and organizes in the Mid-Hudson Valley in New York State. And Cheryl is an Arab American activist and community organizer who lives and works in the New York Hudson Valley. She's a member of the DSA, JVP, and other local and national and international campaigns working for justice. And she is one of the founders of the team that created Your Rep Record. And we're really excited for them to be here with us and show us how to use their tool. So welcome.
Great. Well, thanks, Allie, and thanks to Little Sis for giving us this chance to show off our website. We re we really appreciate it. Are we able to go back to the slides a little bit? Can we just have the first slide there? It doesn't have that much on it, but might be good.
Slide 27, Allie.
Yeah, there you are. So, I mean, the big question, of course, is who are these people? This Your Rep Record. So I would start by saying, how did we get together? We're a fact-based, sort of nonpartisan group, but we're focused on progressive issues. And we got together because we're a group of Palestine activists who we had just so much frustration with our representatives. He's so good at presenting himself as a liberal in town halls and to other audiences. And meanwhile, he was voting for every weapon and surveillance bill, and he was steadfastly supporting Israel's genocide. So how were we going to get the information to try to move him? And researching his record, and maybe your demonstration here on some of the databases made us understand how hard it is to pull all this information together, public information about a congressperson. And that's what our website deals with. It deals with congresspersons' records on these 12 progressive issues. So that's how we decided to create Your Rep Record to be able to collate all this information. And then we became a project of or Empowerment Works so that we could extend our reach and accept donations to finance our work. So I'd like to, if possible, just go back now to them. I'm going to share my screen and show you the opening part of our website here. Let's see, there we go, I hope. And I'll make it full screen if I can. There we go. So there you are. That's what our website looks like. And we are looking at, as I said, 12 progressive issues. Here they are: Palestine, Israel, immigration, foreign policy, healthcare, etc. I'll let you read those for yourself. We thought it was important, even though we started as Palestine solidarity activists, to go across these issues because we understand that the basis to move any politician is more than a single issue. So intersectionality is really, really important. Second of all, we compile originally sourced data, some of the kinds you've seen today, and it's updated daily. So you can see more, but there's so much on this website that we're going to be able to show you about about 10% of it, 10% of it today. And I'm going to suggest that you go into the website at yourreprecord.org and just play around with it and learn more. But meanwhile, Cheryl is going to take you through the beginning of what we've got going on here.
Thank you, Felice. So one of the things that we think you'll use most on our website is the tools section, and Felice is going to tap into that. These are accountability tools.
So there you are, up there at the top.
There you go. And I'm just going to briefly touch on what each of these are. The member comparison. You know how when you go to buy a car, you'll compare different models, etc. You can compare different reps to others with this member comparison tool. You can compare up to, actually, I think 3 or more at one time. Then there's campaign finance. We've talked a lot about that tonight already. You know, this is how we follow the money, who's giving it, PAC funding, individual donors, etc. All of this shows the expenditures for every member, and it does include the FEC data. We do draw that data daily. The community project funding, right? So we want to look at line items and earmarks here by district and to see where the federal money is coming into your district and who secured those funds. The attendance tracker, are they even showing up to vote? You'll be able to see here if they showed up to vote or if they just clicked present. And again, this is also across all congressional sessions. Legislative effectiveness. Are they introducing bills? Do those bills pass committee? Do they come enter into law? Again, you'll be able to compare their effectiveness with bills and securing them across all the reps in the House. Committee conflict map. When you click on, and Felice is going to do this shortly, an individual member, you'll see the committees that they're on. So this particular tool will show you what committees, the PAC money rather, that's flowing into that committee. And we all know that that's influencing voting, but this will detail that for you. Stock trades, we're hearing a lot about that lately. This will show you who's buying and selling, and links to copies actually of the original filings are in this tool. Then we have travel disclosures. You know, a lot of our reps are going on trips that are paid by outside sources. You'll be able to see these private funded trips here, who paid for them and who went, whether it was the member or their staff, and the cost of those particular trips. Then the congressional speech and rhetoric tool is where we show you what they're actually saying on the floor. And within this particular tool, we've embedded an AI opportunity to where you can look at specific framing or words to see how they're contextualizing their speeches. So it's a very cursory look at the tools, but the tool we want to focus on with you tonight is the one that's sort of the gateway to your rep record, and that's how do you compare. And this is actually a quiz across the 12 domains that Felice showed you, where you can identify what matters to you, how you would answer these questions, and then see how your rep voted on these very same issues. So Allie has graciously offered to be our subject here, and she's going to take the quiz live, and then we'll look at the results together. Okay, Allie, you ready?
I'm ready, I think.
Thank you so much. So the first question, should immigrants be jailed without a bail hearing based on criminal charges alone?
No.
No. Okay.
And then this will keep advancing. By the way, I want to show you if you'll see why this matters in sources. That takes you to the specific bill that this question is referencing. And Allie, you can also skip a question if you'd like, up to you since this is public. Should Congress keep the subsidies that lower people's monthly health insurance bills? What do you think?
Yes. That sounds great.
Should the government help first-time buyers and pay to build more starter homes?
Yes, I would love that.
Me too. Should Congress punish a member for shouting in protest during a presidential speech?
No, I don't think so.
No, that's a no. Okay. There we go.
Should U.S. troops be pulled out of fighting in Lebanon that Congress never approved?
Yes.
Okay. Should the U.S. and Israeli militaries jointly develop and share weapons technology? There's the NDA legislation, that's in the news. What do you think?
No.
Should federal workers get back the union rights an executive order took away?
Yes, definitely.
Should Congress stop California from setting stricter car pollution limits?
No.
Should military health insurance be banned from covering gender-affirming care?
No.
Should schools be required to hand pregnant students anti-abortion materials?
No.
Should Congress undo DC's police accountability rules?
No.
Should Congress block the consumer agency from regulating apps like Venmo or Cash App?
No.
Okay.
And now we'll see the results. But before we look them up, Allie, do you know your representative very well? I assume you do.
A little bit, and my zip code is 15209.
So what do you think before we get the results? What's your best guess about how aligned you will be with her or his voting record?
I think I agree with him on a lot when it comes to workers' rights. He was a union staffer, but we are definitely not aligned on all things. I think especially when it comes to Israel, Palestine, and the military.
So let's take a
Shall we
look and
see?
see. Yep. 92%. Now what do you think? Does that kind of fit with what you expected?
A little bit. I thought he would be slightly less aligned, but
Well, you can see here, you can print these results, or you can copy a link, you can share them with others. So for each of the questions that you just answered, Allie, again, you can click on these and get to the specific legislation that he voted on.
Aaron, let's see, what was surprising to you? Any of them?
I guess nothing too surprising looking at this list now. I would hope he would be in support of these.
All right.
I will say, some of us have been surprised by the results. It's really an interesting tool, and it will show you, where your rep isn't representing you. So thank you, Allie. We appreciate it. And now I'm going to turn it back to Felice, who's going to do what we're calling a shallow dive, because we don't have time to do a deep dive.
Right. So let's see. Here we go. Back to the main page. So that's really interesting. We've had some fun with man on the street stuff when we have a representative like ours who talks the talk but has only recently found the walk. But this is really about power mapping. So we thought we would take one example of a representative, which I have to admit we chose sort of at random, to try to understand how you could use this. So here, let's see. The one we chose is Brendan Boyle, who is a Democrat from, oops, let's see, it may not make it here. Yes, there it is. His Democrat from Pennsylvania. You can see his district here. You could click on it if you wanted to. On our grading scale, which you can learn more about by when you go to About, there's our pages of our methodology. But we basically would use a progressive lens, I would say. So he's got a C plus. And in terms of progressive, his progressive nature, he's about he's actually of all Congress people, he's at number 150 in terms of how he stacks up on a progressive lens. But you can see there are some issues here. And I think that I'm going to go to transparency here, which is one of the tools to let you see some of what we've got. So first of all, you can get this some from the census data for the district. You can get an idea of what we're looking at here. And the way I'm looking at this is a district which is relatively young with mixed demographics because there's a lot of foreign-born people and a working class income. So that's you can see that. But given that what those people need, he hasn't done that well on housing and affordability, hasn't done that well on healthcare, and he's got a lot of other issues that are not that good. So how does this guy keep getting elected? This was the question we asked. So we are going to go to money and influence. Well, let's see. He's been 6 terms in Congress and gets like 70% of his money from PACs. So I wouldn't describe this as being, he doesn't have huge grassroots support. If you want to influence him, you want to go and look at who is giving him the money. His biggest donors are labor. You can click on that and you'll see who are the top donors. If you want to get something done, I would say a starting point is to see if you can enlist any of those unions on your side. But then you would see on foreign affairs, APAC is his biggest donor. So you sort of know where that's going to be. But in any case, this guy's a labor guy. And that you can see those are the pressure points. And that is just a tiny little toe dip into the kiddie pool of what's in this website. But I hope it will encourage you to explore it. And now I'm just going to go back to, we're going to go back to Cheryl. I'm going to stop screen
Go back to the
sharing.
main page actually for a second, please.
Okay.
I want to show people the scatter graph because I think it's interesting.
Okay. Well, so we'll go back to that. Here, let's see. I think we can go back to it this way.
Bottom
Sorry,
of the
well,
page.
I'll bring them back. Okay.
No,
So
at the bottom, there you are. Yes, good. Okay.
this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can see where does he stack up versus the Congress, but then let's look at his party. So he's definitely leaning towards the more conservative side. Where does he stack up on? Let's go to housing and let's look at him versus the Democratic Party. So that's what I meant when I said he's not really necessarily representing all the needs of his district. But on labor, he's been good. On let's see, on climate, he's been really good. So this is a way of it's a shortcut, but all the original data is behind this, and you are able to click through to it and you can find it. So I think that might be what we want to do. So I'm going to just stop here and go to Cheryl, and maybe you can, I don't know. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, thank you. And Allie, can we go back to the slide 30, please? So by the way, on the home page, while we're waiting, that scatter graph at the bottom of the home page, you can click on it and see all 443 reps on that spectrum.
So there you are.
Thank you. So we feel like we've pulled back the curtain for transparency in politics. We're giving you one-stop shopping to get a ton of information rather than going to multiple sites to get different data. So as we know, we're scoring every member on one standard. Do they put your interests ahead of PACs, lobbies, and the party machine? So, by the way, for those that might be interested, we can also create a single congressional district site if you're interested. We've done this for organizers who then used it to incorporate the information and to post their own content for those sites. So we are not affiliated with any campaign, political party. We accept no advertising or sponsored content. We're totally donor supported. So we are seeking grants, we're seeking donations in hope to do the same thing for the Senate, because it just covers the House. And we want to remain free and independent, but we do need support from folks like you. So please follow us on social media. There's all of our places in social media. And also, please invite us if you're interested to do a presentation for your community or your organization where we can do a deeper dive into the content that we have here. And any questions, feel free to contact us at the link on this slide. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Jim, Molly, and Allie.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Like we were saying, this is a really great and powerful tool, and it can do many more things than we've shown tonight. So definitely jump on there, and we're hoping to collaborate more in the future. Thank you so much, Cheryl and Felice. I think we're gonna almost wrap up here. There's a couple more things I wanted to share. Allie, are you cool with continuing to share the slides? Awesome, thank you. So like we said before, we really focused a lot on campaign finance research, some other things that your rep record can do tonight. There's lots of other kind of categories of information that people might be interested in figuring out about your electeds, and we did just want to share a couple other additional resources that you can refer back to. So one is Legiscan. That's a legislation tracker that shows descriptions, sponsors, votes, and status of legislation. So if you're trying to figure out how your electeds are voting, what their kind of legislative record is, your rep record has some of that for Congress. Legiscan is also a great place to go. Ballotopedia is another resource that includes biographical information, candidate surveys, and kind of historical data for national, state, and local elections, and can be a really good place, like if you're trying to do a little bit of research on a particular candidate for the first time, kind of some historical info. And then Little Sis, our database, littlesis.org, which is, like I mentioned before, totally free and shows profiles and connections between powerful people and organizations. So those are some other places as you're doing research to check out. And we can go to the next slide. I think we're almost going to wrap up. We have an end poll that we would love for people to take. So I think, Jen, if you could launch that, that would be awesome. And again, we'll give people a minute or two to answer that. Super helpful for us as we continue to do these trainings. I'm gonna give people like one more minute, like a minute and 30 seconds. Awesome. We'll give like 10, 15 more seconds. Cool. I think we can end that, Jen. And a couple other things this evening. We will, as I said, send out slides and a recording as long as you are registered for tonight. The recording will also be up on our YouTube channel, so look out for that. And one other resource we have is our mapthepower.net toolkit, which walks through some research like this, as well as some more kind of conceptual frameworks on what power mapping is, why to do it, examples of using it in a campaign. So make sure to check that out. And again, sign up for our research tools for organizers training by going to littlesis.org/trainings. We'll share more tools, more examples of how to use this research. And we do these trainings for free. We want to keep them free. So if you feel like you can throw us some money, we'd really appreciate it. You can scan this QR code to donate so that we can keep doing these because we love doing them and we love that as many people as possible can join for free. I think that's all we have for tonight. The last thing here is just our contact info. Allie, if you want to go to the next slide. Here's Jen and Allie's contact info as well as our social media. Feel free to reach out if you have questions, if there's a power researching task you're struggling with. We're here to support you all. And I think we'll wrap up about 10 minutes early. Thank you to Jen and Allie, and thank you to Felice and Cheryl so much for all the work you're doing and for teaching us about your rep record. Hope everyone has a good night. Bye.
Bye.